Just when they thought I was out, they pull me back in. All right, Kay.
What's up, guys? I know it's been a while, and I want to apologize for the lack of videos lately. I was definitely getting burnt out with WoW, along with trying to manage school and work on top of that. But I can never resist the urge to play a fresh server. So for this video, I wanted to put together a guide for leveling with world PvP. I know it's more efficient to just dungeon grind and go like full enhance or just go like full resto in dungeons, but if you do prefer balance of like questing in dungeons, then I think you'll enjoy this video and it'll be pretty beneficial for you. There are other great, amazing shaman leveling guides that focus on min-maxing to 60, but I don't find them that enjoyable. One of the greatest things and one of the points of our fresh server is to, go through the journey of 1 to 60 and all the world PvP that comes along with it. This video will be aimed towards newer shaman players, and I'll be showing a lot of my classic era clips in the background of me leveling while world PvPing. And I feel like this helps give a visual example of everything I'll be explaining in this video. I found most people, including myself, were visual learners, so watching my clips and other PvP videos will definitely help you learn more effectively. So before we get into it, make sure to leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already to help support the channel. I'm hoping to improve my video quality by doing a bit more commentaries, especially with gameplay. I think it'll be pretty beneficial to just kind of explain my mindset versus each class I go against. And let me know if you guys enjoy this format or if you enjoy videos with no commentary. I'll definitely try to do a mix of both, so keep an eye out for more videos. I'll obviously be doing another leveling while world PvP series with the fresh servers. And I just feel like low level PvP is probably some of the most unique and enjoyable PvP WoW has to offer. You don't have to worry about gear, gold, none of that. Alright, so the main topics I'm going to go over in this video, we'll probably start with the most asked question, which is which race to pick. And then after that, I'll go into which talents to run, along with gear and stat priority. And then I'll go a bit into more depth explaining totems, weapon enhancements, shocks, professions, macros, add-ons, and some miscellaneous information like consumables, PvP tips, deranking spells, etc., etc. So just take all the information I give with a grain of salt. This isn't like the end-all be-all. Like, you can adjust it or tweak it how you prefer. I'm making this guide with a heavy focus on world PvP and not so much of leveling efficiency. So getting right into it, the question I usually get asked the most, besides add-ons, is which race should I go? So when it comes to picking a race, I would choose for PvP between Orc and Tauren. Again, it all comes down to personal preference, and you can dominate with any race. Troll is still a great option with their berserking. I believe it gives haste, but I feel like that's a bit more beneficial for PvE. Shamans struggle a ton with survivability due to our lack of any type of CC. So Tauren and Orc help fill that void. And I feel like Tauren is a great option due to their War Stomp, which this pretty much gives you what Shamans lacks in a stun. And that can be used to set up pretty decent burst combos or just help get a heal off. Orc's stun resist isn't as reliable in terms of being on demand since it's RNG, but it can help pretty often in Classic. Classic stun resist is 25% for Orcs, I believe. And this helps us survive against damn near every class, rogues, warriors, hunters, and pretty much every opponent is going to be using engineering. So I feel like you can't go wrong with either Tauren or Orc for PvP. I'll personally probably roll Orc again due to this server progressing to TBC, so keep that in mind. So I believe in TBC, Orc's Blood Fury gives spell power along with melee attack power. So in TBC, I plan to play a bit of Enhanced, and I'll probably play some Enhanced later down the line in Vanilla also. Next up, we have talents. So the spec I'll give you guys here is a bit more custom and unusual, but I found out that this worked out pretty well for me. Shamans, as you guys know, are very versatile. and they offer great utility and can put out pretty decent damage, so I adjusted my talents to complement that even more. While leveling in Classic Era, I went Enhanced until the Parry talent, and then I went into Resto until level 40. I only did this because I knew I would be running a ton of Scarlet Monasteries, so having those Resto talents helped me heal more efficiently, and it also helped a good bit in World PvP scenarios. And you still have some great utility spells from the enhanced tree like Shield Specialization, Improved Ghost Wolf, Improved Grounding Totem, etc, etc. And all of these help in PvP and PvP scenarios. So going full enhanced is still very viable, and I would actually recommend it. I just find being able to heal helps get dungeon spots easier, and it helps with survivability in World PvP. So my talent spec looked like this before 40. I got Shield Specialization, 5 out of 5. Improved Ghost Wolf, this is very good for World PvP. And after that, I maxed out Thundering Strikes. And then you're going to want to pick up Two-Handed Axes and Bases. And then Guardian Totems. This will help give you a shorter Grounding Totem cooldown. And then you want to get Flurry. And then Parry. So Parry is very good against melee, warriors, rogues. This will help you survive a lot more fights. And then after that, we go into Resto. So this is personal preference. I think having a reduced cast time on Healing Wave is pretty decent. I just found that I didn't use it that often, so I went into Tidal Focus. And then Ancestral Healing is very nice. And then Totemic Focus. And then at this point, you're level 40. And then after level 40, I would recommend respeccing and going Elemental. Having Elemental Mastery while leveling is one of the most fun and busted experiences that you'll ever have as a Shaman. Enhance is really fun too, but I feel like Elemental is just a bit more efficient in World PvP, and it's not too bad in questing and dungeon grinding. After getting Elemental Mastery, continue into Restoration. And for dungeons, I would just recommend going Resto. Elemental's mana issues are pretty bad, so my talent tree for Elemental was Convection. This helps a bit with mana issues you'll have while leveling. And then Call of Flame. And then I put a couple points into Concussion just to get a little bit of damage. And then we grab Clear Casting, Elemental Focus. And then Call of Thunder, you're going to want to max this out. You're going to want to max out Eye of Storm. And then so here you can kind of do what you prefer. I usually used to go Improve Fire Totems, but I feel like just having Reverberation is probably going to be a bit more effective for those shorter cooldown times on your shocks. So we'll get Reverberation here, Storm Reach, max that out, Elemental Fury, and then it won't hurt to put 1 point into Improve Fire Totems because 0 out of 2 is very slow, I found. But just for the use of shocks, we can go 3 out of 5 here. Lightning Mastery, and then Elemental Mastery. So then after this, you're going to want to go into Resto. And like I mentioned, these two are personal preference. I just prefer Tidal Focus, Ancestral Healing, Totemic Focus. Then you're going to want Totemic Mastery 100%. And then Nature's Guidance gives you 3% hit. Then you grab a point in Healing Focus. Then you're going to want to max out Tidal Mastery for that extra crit for healing and your damage spells. Alright, next we have gear and stat priority. So when it comes to gear, especially on a PvP server, try to have as much stamina as possible. I can't tell you how many times I've survived encounters due to stacking a bit extra stamina, as you'll also see in all of these clips also. So I mentioned to go enhanced till 40, so for the stat priority for that, I would suggest stamina, then strength, and then intellect. And I would argue that strength and intellect share the same priority. Make sure you pick up intellect and spear gear, that way you can use them to heal in dungeons a bit more effectively regardless of what spec you are. Some notable two-handed weapons to get while leveling as enhanced is the Corpse Maker from RFK and Ravager from SM Armory. I'm sure there's a lot more, but those are two of the main ones I always aim for. And also make sure you keep up with your shield progression, whether you're enhanced or elemental / resto. There are a lot of great shields you can get from dungeon quests, from BFD, RFK, etc. And for elemental / resto, the best shields you can get while leveling is from SM Cath off of Mogreen, and then from Mara off of Tinkerer. A good one-hander as elemental will be Hypnotic Blade, and make sure to just have this as enhanced so you can swap to a one-handed shield. It gives great stats in intellect and spell power, and it's pretty strong to use as melee. Also, always wear your highest proficiency of armor. I know it's a bit harder to do this while leveling, but a perk of being a shaman is being tanky against melee due to being able to wear leather and mail and having a shield. So before 40, try to always wear leather, and after 40, aim to always wear mail. I know it can be tempting and easier to wear cloth pieces that give spell power while playing elemental, but I really do not think it's worth stacking spell power that early while leveling. And it's definitely not worth losing survivability. The name of the game is just to survive. Shaman's toolkit is pretty much enough to kill any enemy, so it's not worth losing that survivability. Each spell rank benefits with spell power the higher the rank they are, so the lower level spells will not really benefit that much from spell power and healing power. However, I'll get into this a bit later with professions, but you're going to want to have engineering, and this way you can craft Green Lens of Nature's Wrath. It gives a shit ton of nature damage and some stamina. So this, along with Hypnotic Blade, provides a pretty healthy balance of spell power, stamina, and intellect. And at this point, you'll probably be over 40, and that's when spell power really starts to kick off. Most of the other spell power or healing gear you can get while leveling don't really give you any stats. It's a bunch of like Nature's Wrath or healing power, and it's just raw like spell or healing power, and you just lose a bunch of stats. And stamina and intellect alone will do you far better in PvP and PvE while leveling. So this is where the learning curve when playing a shaman comes into place. Totems are what make shamans super unique and very fun to play. However, it's pretty unfortunate. I see a lot of shamans who do not utilize their totems efficiently in PvP and in PvE. Using your totems correctly can be the deciding factor in winning fights most times, and each totem has a pretty unique effect and use against each class. I'll primarily go over the main totems I use for PvP and explain their use a bit, but I'll probably be making a dedicated PvP video at 60 explaining each totem a bit more in depth versus each class. So starting off with the fire totems, first off is the Searing totem, and it gets pretty decent damage and it's pretty useful against all classes, but I think you'll find it more useful for its utility, like its pushback against casters and helping keep rogues out of combat more so than its damage alone. Next we have Fire Nova totem and Magma totem, which both of them are very expensive with mana. I haven't mentioned this earlier, but shamans, like most other classes in vanilla, struggle with mana severely, so just be cautious when you're using these totems. Fire Nova offers great damage and is very useful against melee when you can't get a cast off, so you'll probably have a little extra mana to spare. And it's really good when setting up a big burst with EM plus Shock, which is Elemental Mastery plus Earth Shock or Frost Shock. I haven't found myself using Magma Totem too often in PvP. The only other time I can think of using it is against rogues, and it's like a nice way to try to bait them out of stealth. Next we have our Earth totems, which are arguably your most important totems in PvP. They offer so much utility against every class. First off is Stone Skin totem, which offers pretty decent melee damage reduction if you can't get melee off of you. However, it wouldn't hurt to use Strength of Earth totem, especially if you're enhanced, and even as elemental, because the melee damage you get from your weapon even as elemental is pretty decent. Next is Earthbind totem. This helps tremendously versus warriors and rogues to help create space between them. It's also great against hunters once you get into melee range against them to prevent them from kiting. Stoneclaw is also very good to use in PvP scenarios. It can help keep mobs off of you in PvP at times, and always make sure to use Stoneclaw to taunt mobs, and it'll help prevent them from destroying your Fire Nova totem If you didn't know, Fire Nova generates a ton of threat. Lastly, for Earth Totems is the Tremor Totem, which is probably your most important one, and it's a must-have against Priests and Warlocks and Warriors. Use these preemptively before fighting Locks and Priests to break fears. Tremor Totem also breaks charms from Succubus and sleeps from Magic Dust. So I haven't mentioned this yet, but Tremor Totem along with Poison Cleansing Totem and a few others I believe have a 4 to 5 second tick window. This basically means that you'll get a tick to break fear or to break a blind or whatever poison you may have on you every 4 to 5 seconds. So the reason I was saying to use Tremor Totem or Poison Cleansing Totem preemptively is because if, say, a Priest or Warlock gets a fear off on you, if they know what they're doing, they'll just fear you and then they'll destroy your totem because it takes like 5 seconds for it to tick. So that's more than enough time to destroy it. So just make sure you have it down ahead of time and preferably have it a bit further from them so they can't destroy it as easily. That way you can get off some pretty quick ticks. Same goes for blinds. The next important totem I kept mentioning was Poison Cleansing Totem, and I just mentioned it can break blinds. So blinds in vanilla is a poison. I think in TBC, I'm not sure if it's TBC or Wrath, it changes to a physical. And make sure to have it against hunters also for the Viper Sting and their Serpent Sting. And I don't find myself using other water totems too often into PvP, so I won't get into them too much in this video for time's sake. The next and most notable totem for Shamans is our Grounding Totem, which is an air totem. Always use these against casters and always make sure to use these against hunters as well. It will prevent you from being trapped by them, and for some reason, Grounding Totem does not always disappear after it eats a trap, so I don't know why this is a bug or if that's intended. I believe sometimes it does get destroyed, so I'm not sure how that works completely. And the next air totem, Wind Fury, make sure you have this down if you're in a group with like warriors and rogues in a group scenario or in a battleground. And lastly, Wind Wall Totem. I rarely ever see anybody use this, but it's a bit more niche. But if a hunter is kiting you, it works basically like a ranged Stone Skin Totem. It will just help mitigate the range damage you're taking. So if you can't get into range of them, just make sure you have Wind Wall down. Just don't forget to put Grounding down if they come to try to scatter and then trap you. So if you can, make sure you always have all your totems down from each school of magic, so up to 4, even if you don't need all of them. This can just help overwhelm your opponents. If they become too hyper fixated on trying to destroy your totems, this can actually give you the edge in a fight. But always prioritize having specific totems I mentioned earlier to help you win more fights against whatever class you're going up against. And this goes without saying, but make sure you are always utilizing all your totems in dungeon groups. I can't tell you how many times like I'll be in a dungeon group when I wasn't playing Shaman and someone just wouldn't use Wind Fury or Mana Spring, Healing Spring, etc, etc. Even Disease Cleansing Totem, like I think towards the end, like Scarlet Monastery, not Scarlet, Strat, and Scholomance, there's a lot of diseases that go out. So just having Disease Cleansing Totem down can be pretty beneficial. And that's usually the main reason why Shamans are taken. Not just because of healing, but because of all the buffs that totems provide for the groups. It's the counterpart to Paladin's Blessings. So next up we have our weapon enhancements. And before I explain each one, always melee your opponent even if you're not spec'd into enhancement. You can get a lot of extra damage from melee hits alone. So just like totems, there are enhancements for each school of magic. First we have Rockbiter, which is very good especially with a slow hitting weapon. You're going to want to use this 1 through 29 regardless of whatever spec you are. I would not really recommend using Flame Tongue or Frostband while leveling. The damage you get from Rockbiter 1 through 29 is more than you would get from using Flame Tongue. And then at level 30 you get Wind Fury weapon. So yes, you can argue that Flame Tongue is more consistent damage with each hit, but Wind Fury procs so often, and I would recommend using this all the way to 60, again regardless of whatever spec you are. And it gives pretty reliable damage with whatever weapon you're using, even if it's just a one-hander. Flame Tongue weapon is pretty decent once you get more spell power, and it offers extra damage on each successful melee hit, so it's pretty consistent and reliable. However, I found just using, like I mentioned earlier, I found using Wing Fury just helped me win way more fights. And Flame Tongue weapon is pretty decent to use against opponents who have a lot of armor, so the fire damage from that will ignore their armor. And lastly is Frostband weapon. This enhancement is very good once you get a decent bit of spell power, and even without spell power, the utility from it is just amazing. So just like Flame Tongue, this will benefit from your 100% critical damage talent from the elemental tree. I believe it's called Elemental Fury, yeah. So if you have this talent and then you use one of those enhancements, so you can also hit with the extra damage from Flame Tongue and Frostband. I'm actually not too sure about Flame Tongue, but I know 100% Frostband weapon crits. There were times where I would be meleeing an opponent and I would get a crit for like 300 to 500 damage with Frostband. So Frostband doesn't proc every time though, like Flame Tongue. That's why I don't think Flame Tongue crits. But the reasoning for this, like I mentioned, is really good because when it does proc, you hit way harder than Flame Tongue, and it slows your opponent for about 25%, I believe, for like 8 seconds. So this helps tremendously versus melee, and the utility you gain from Frostband alone is enough to justify using it in PvP, even before you get some decent spell power. So next we have our shocks. First up is Earth Shock, which is from our Nature School of Magic, and is also our highest damaging shock. It locks one school of magic and it has a pretty short cooldown, but just be aware, skilled opponents will try to fake cast you, and if they get off, like say a mage fake cast and gets a poly off, that can win them the fight. Same with a warlock using their fear, fake casting their fear. And also Earthshock generates a high amount of threat, so be pretty cautious when you're using that in PvE scenarios. Frost Shock is next and is very useful against melee. It does pretty high damage as well, and it slows them for about 50%, I believe. Yeah, it slows them for 50% for about 8 seconds, so it's very powerful. And then Flame Shock is decent while leveling because it applies a dot, so it's pretty mana efficient. It's really nice while questing. And in PvP, it's very useful against rogues. This will prevent them from resetting fights, which this will help you win a lot of fights against rogues. So next up we have our professions, and this is one of the most important things for a shaman. As you see in this clip, I was level 58 and this was a level 60 geared rogue targeting me, and I only won this fight because of engineering. Engineering is a must-have for shamans to make up for our lack of CC. I ended up rocket helming this rogue, and this allowed me to reset the fight and have a better chance at killing him or just getting away. And when I started Classic Era, I had no gold or help, so this will be the same for Fresh. All you really need is mining and engineering, and that's pretty much all you need. That'll allow you to craft everything you need for PvP and PvE. If I wanted any item from Gnomish Engineering, all I would do is just get the mats and then find a Gnomish Engineer. If you didn't know already, you don't need to be Goblin or Gnomish specifically to use their items. You just need to have the engineering level to equip them. So Shamans are known for one-shotting, which is batching Chain Lightning and Earthshock with Elemental Mastery. However, this is not really going to happen too much against decent players in World PvP. Unless you're a Tauren and you can War Stomp, then this won't be as hard for you, but that only is effective against melee. Really good range classes like Hunters, Mages, Warlocks, they're not going to let you just run on top of them and War Stomp them. So another great thing with engineering is Iron Grenade. So Iron Grenade will help you set up a lot of one-shot combos. Pretty much all of my clips are just setting up one-shot combos with Iron Grenade. It's really simple, but it's very effective. And while you do this, Iron Grenade is 3 seconds, so I don't do this too much, but I need to. You can set up your Fire Nova totem first before you use EM into Chain Lightning and a shock, and this will just give you more burst potential. Because a lot of times I'll Chain Lightning into shock and I'll leave my opponents with just a little bit of HP, which that helps them heal up or just get away or whatever the case may be. So also with this, if you need to, if you're low, that 3 seconds, that's enough time to get a heal and an EM combo off. So your lesser healing wave is about 1.5 seconds, So you can do that and then set up your EM plus chain lightning plus shock. So another great item in engineering is Goblin Mortar. I use this a ton. It always catches my opponents off guard. And I believe it does share a stun DR with Iron Grenade, but it doesn't break with damage, and it's a trinket, so it doesn't share the same cooldown as all your other engineering items. So if you want to use like Goblin Sapper Charge or anything else and then use this, it's a very nice combo. And it also offers really good damage, especially while you're leveling. I think it's like 400 damage, so that's really nice. And I've encountered very weird scenarios where my Goblin Mortar would stun my opponent twice and it will do double damage. So I don't know, it's pretty cheesy. And make sure you craft reflectors as soon as possible. I know it's pretty difficult, but just try to get those reflectors. I usually struggle to get them because they're pretty expensive or just hard to make or find. And have some discombobulator rays on hand. These are great for just dismounting people trying to run away and nerfing their stats. So besides mining and engineering, for secondary professions, make sure you have first aid for PvP. It can come in handy a lot. Okay, before we wrap this video up, I'm going to go over a few miscellaneous things along with macros, add-ons, and just some random tips in no specific order. So for macros, I really only use Mouseover Heal macros, Startattack macros, and macros to swap my main hand and offhand. I'll list some examples in the description, but here are a few of them. I macro pretty much all of my weapons. That way, whenever I'm ranking up or getting new spells, I don't have to worry about dragging them onto my bar. They'll pretty much automatically update for you. And then, like I said, you can attach start attacks to some of them. Then I have macros, like I mentioned, for Mouseover Heals. And then I macroed my Elemental Mastery, same with Nature's Swiftness. While leveling, you don't really need this because you won't really have trinkets, but you can macro some trinkets onto here. And my other macro, like I mentioned, are my shield and main weapon macros. All you need, you can do this with any weapon or offhand. All you need is equip slot 16 for your main hand, and then /equip slot 17 for your offhand or shield. And next, the question I get asked probably the most is what add-ons I use. All of my add-ons are listed in my descriptions of all my videos. And I also made a pretty short but informative add-on video. I think it's like 4 minutes or something. And I explain each of the add-ons I use for PvP and why I feel like they are effective. Give that video a watch if you're interested in my other add-ons. I don't remember all of them off the top of my head, but that video should have pretty much all of them. And just a quick side note, a lot of add-ons have been having issues, like classic aura durations. I don't even know if that still works. Like it has not been working for the past few months, if I'm not mistaken. Along with enemy cooldown count, that's another add-on that has not been working for me. So some of the important add-ons off the top of my head: Totem Timer, that's great for shamans. It tracks your totems, it tracks the ticks for them, and it also tracks your Ankh, lightning shield, and your weapon enhancement. Item rack, that's really nice for engineering, swapping out pieces, and just swapping out gear. Classic aura durations, like I mentioned, hopefully they get that to work again. Or maybe it has worked and it's just something on my end. Again, check out my add-on video for more information. And just some last notes and random things I might have forgotten earlier. While you're leveling, always carry mana pots with you in dungeons. This will just help you be more efficient while while healing in dungeons. Because, like I mentioned, Shaman's mana sucks. And make sure to carry health pots in world PvP or just in the outworld in general. This will help with survivability. And if you can carry lips, this can help when dealing with hunters, rogues, and warriors. Also, make sure you're fake casting against rogues, warriors, and especially mages. So another issue with shamans, we only have one school of magic, castable magic, which is linked to our healing. So if you get locked in nature, it's pretty much GG. And also make sure you're applying lightning shield against all classes. I've killed hunters literally with lightning shield alone. Like, there's some hunters that would kite me pretty efficiently or pretty effectively, and I couldn't reach them, but I just kept healing, dispelling Viper Sting, and reapplying Lightning Shield, and they don't even realize their health is getting low until they're pretty much dead. Also, you're going to want to be deranking some spells. The main spells I derank are all of my shocks, Lightning Bolt, and then some lesser Healing Wave spells, and sometimes Healing Wave. So while I'm leveling, I'll always have a max rank of lesser Healing Wave, and then I might have like a rank, like 2 to 3 ranks down, just in case I need to get a heal off and I'm running low on mana. Also, you're going to want to derank all of your shocks. So you're going to want to have a max rank and a rank 1. It's good to just use the rank 1 of all the shocks for their utility, and that helps a ton whenever I'm going but I still need to lock a School of Magic against an opponent. Same with Frost Shock rank 1. If I need to just slow the opponent and I don't want to use a max rank to save mana, that's great. And same with Flame Shock against rogues. Just to keep them in combat and to help save mana, you can just use rank 1 there. You're going to want to have a rank 1 Lightning Bolt. This is great to fish out clear casting procs, especially when you're going And something I found pretty helpful, you can use rank 1s against like mages, warriors, rogues. They'll try to lock you or like silence you or whatever. And on their screen, a rank 1 may not look as fast as it does to you. So they'll try to lock you and then you already casted it. So an improved ranked 1 Lightning Bolt is only half a second. So it's a great way to try to bait out the opponent. And lastly, like I mentioned, your lesser Healing Wave, especially at 60. I guess this is primarily more so for PvE, but I do utilize this in PvP. I'll have my max rank lesser Healing Wave, and then I'll have like a rank 4 lesser Healing Wave. And this is great when I'm running low on mana. So I hope this video has helped. I wasn't trying to go too much into depth, but at the same time, I didn't want this video to be too shallow. So let me know if there's anything I missed. There's a lot of information I wanted to add, but like I said, I wanted to make it as simple as possible for new shamans and for any experienced shamans. Without any advice or tips that you feel like can help everybody else out here. I'm not the best shaman. I've not been playing that long, but I feel like I've learned a decent bit so far. And after vanilla, I am actually looking forward to Shaman and TBC. Shaman and TBC Elemental is a bit disappointing with resilience, and it doesn't really get any benefits from any upgrades from vanilla, I should say. Like in Wrath, Elemental is insane. In TBC, it's not that great. So TBC will give me a chance to venture out and play other specs more often, like Resto and Enhancement. So we'll see how that goes. So again, I hope this video was helpful, and I'll catch you guys on fresh launch. I believe it's November 21st, so next Thursday from the time I'm making this video. I'll catch you guys then. Stay tuned. I have a lot of videos planned, and I hope this is a great year moving on forward into TBC.